We'll continue to build our form. We're going to be adding some different types of fields next. What I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to create a new field set. And the new field set will contain this new grouping of items. I'm going to set a legend for this field set, and it's going to say specifics, and then we're going to be asking our user for some specific information. The first type of form element that we're going to create here is going to be a drop-down menu. This can also be referred to as a select box, a drop-down list, a drop-down box, or an option box. A select list is configured with one selected element and multiple option elements. So let's learn how we can build one of these. I'll start off by creating a label, and I'm going to assign the for attribute to be for location. And then I'm going to create some options. Select fields always are going to be paired up with options. So how this works is we'll begin by setting our select tag, and I'm going to assign an ID of location as well as a name value of location. And the select field is a field that actually has a closing tag. The reason why is because the select field contains other tags within it. It kind of works like a list. The select element contains and configures the select list form control. The option element contains and configures the option items that are to be displayed in the select list form control. And we open the option item and then we close the option item. So within the option tag, I'm going to set the value attribute. The value attribute is going to assign a value to the option. If the user selects this particular option, this will be what it's set to, what it's going to be equal to. And then within the actually opening and closing option tag, I'm going to put the text that I want to appear. So in this case, we're going to allow the user to select a location, and the option value here is going to be California. I'm just going to copy this line of code and I'll paste this in several times, and we'll change the value here to some other locations. Okay, so you can see that we have three options here: California, Hawaii, and Costa Rica. I'm going to save my page and let's take a look at it in the browser. You can see when I refresh, I have a new field set. The legend says specifics, and then I have location, and you can see that location is displaying the three options that we have. When you use a select box like this, the user can make one choice and only one choice based on the selections that are available. The select box does always start with a specific option visible or showing. So what I like to do when I create select boxes is I like to kind of create a null option, and I'm going to place this at the top of my code right here. And for the value, we're just going to make this select location. And then the text is going to say select a sponsor location. Now when I save and we go back into the browser and refresh, you can see that the message that we wrote is now displaying, and then in the pull down menu I can choose the options. So this just makes it a little bit easier. Instead of having something that's predetermined, makes it a little bit easier for your user to be able to know exactly what they're clicking here and then use the pull down menu or the select box to select what it is that they would like to show on the page. You'll note when we create our select box, we only have the label for the whole select box. The options don't get labels, and that's a way that you would normally configure this. In addition to what I just showed you, by default, the first option is always shown. You can, via code, have another option show, and you would just pass on the attribute of selected, and you're just going to write that. And then if we save this and go refresh in the browser now, you can see that Hawaii is selected. You may find a need to do that perhaps if you were listing a bunch of countries alphabetically, but your site was going to be built primarily in North America. You might want to have United States selected by default, and if everything else was displayed alphabetically, it wouldn't make sense to put that at the top. So sometimes that can be a helpful thing to include within your form. There's a couple other things that I just want to show you quickly with the select field, and that is some additional attributes that we can pass on. In addition to the ID and the name, we can pass on a size attribute. The size attribute is going to configure the number of choices that the browser will show or display. So if I set this to 3 and we saved and we went and looked at this in the browser, you can see that now my select box is going to visually appear a little bit differently. It's going to be more like a select list where they could actually see multiple choices. And if there's more choices available than will show, you'll get these little scroll down menus and you can make additional choices that way. In addition to that, you can also set a select box to allow a user to be able to select multiple choices. So in this way, I could select more than one choice. If we save now and we go refresh in the browser, you can see that I can select multiple choices. I would need to hold down my shift key if the choices were in consecutive order, or I would need to hold down my command key or control key on the PC if the choices were not in sequential order. So those are things that you might find useful as you make select boxes. For our purposes here, I'm going to get rid of both of those attributes and just use the default setting. So our select box, we just want to have select a sponsor location, and then when you pull down, you can make your choice right there as to which location you would like the user to be able to view.